Hokage I'll become stronger when I'm fishing. Chapter 341-360. Chapter 341. Arrogant Enelu, madly abuse Luffy. However, Enelu remained motionless, the cracks on his body shattered like mud, and recovered in the next moment, and even yawned. Bang! Sanji flew up and kicked Enelu's head with one kick, smashing Enelu's head into pieces. But there is still no blood, only the soil is broken. Enelu's entire body seemed to be made of mud. Ah, monster! Chopper let out a strange cry, with a terrified expression on his face. Sanji fell back down, looked at Enelu, gritted his teeth slightly, and said, "It turned out to be a devil fruit person of the nature department." Enelu tilted his head to look at Sanji and said, "It doesn't seem to be someone from Qinghai who doesn't know anything. That guy seems to be a devil fruit person too, but it's probably just a superhuman type." While speaking, Enelu turned his head and glanced at Luffy again. How can a mere superhuman be better than a natural system that masters the earth? At the moment when the voice fell, Enelu's face showed a cold look. Probing the void and pressing down on it, the ability of nature to be a soil fruit is instantly activated. God's punishment. With the touch of Enelu's probe, countless mud surging frantically. Gathering in the sky, it finally turned into a terrifying meteorite with a diameter of 1 to nearly 100 meters, falling towards Luffy and others below. No way. Nami couldn't help covering her mouth, looking at it with a hint of horror. Luffy and others also changed their faces drastically. They had won, and they all already had the confidence to belong to the strong. But Enelu made a random move, and the huge fall gave people an unstoppable feeling. Rubber. Battle axe. 3 swords profound truth, 3,000 worlds. Ground meat kick. After Luffy, Zoro and the others were shocked, they all made their moves. The 3 main forces attacked with all their strength and bombarded the huge stone ball. After the 2 sides were deadlocked for a second, the huge stone ball finally showed signs of shattering. It was smashed apart by Luffy and the others, and scattered in all directions. It's quite capable. Amy Lulu looked blankly at this scene and said, "It seems that your strength is not bad. Before I go to deal with that Qinghai people, it just happens to be an appetizer." Luffy slammed into Enelu and punched Enelu's body. Enelu no longer let it attack, but dodged Luffy's fist with a sideways dodge. Grabbed Luffy's arm with his backhand and yanked it violently. Luffy was caught off guard and was dragged directly by him. Then Enelu slapped his fist, and a huge rock fist slammed the whole person upside down. Whoosh, whoosh. Zoro and Sanji saw this and did not hesitate to give support. But Enelu pressed his backhand to the ground, and the ground beneath the 2 of them cracked inch by inch, spreading forward. Countless stones were smashed towards Sanji and Zoro, who were unstable on their feet. The 2 of them tried their best to resist, but they were still thrown backwards. The 3 of them were in an instant. Nami covered her mouth and her pupils contracted violently. Thought that Enelu, who had robbed some holy land, would have such terrifying strength. Naturally, Luffy and the others would not easily admit defeat. Yelling and rushing forward. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 342, Luffy who burst into a small universe. Humph. Enelu snorted softly and waved back. Whoa, that's it. With this fluttering wave of his hand, the entire side of the earth surged wildly like an ocean wave, and Luffy was directly involved in it. Damn. Seeing this, Sanji and Zoro scolded secretly and rushed over to try to support them. But Enelu waved back, and the surging earth involved them too. Countless dirt and stones washed away like a torrent, swept away Luffy and Zoro Sanji. The 3 of them struggled desperately, but couldn't resist at all. Stop. Enelu looked at this scene lightly, and then grabbed the empty hand with his outstretched hand. The torrent of the earth that swept in all directions suddenly stopped. And Luffy, Zoro and others were all swept in, and they were shaped into a dirt mountain. All of them only exposed one head, and all their bodies were solidified by the earth and mountains. Analu looked at Luffy and the others indifferently, walked slowly by the side, and said, "You can't move, you can't escape, you will be trapped here until the end of your life. This is the punishment of offending God." "Stop kidding, you bastard." Luffy's body was sealed inside the mountain, but the exposed half of his head showed no signs of cowardice. Instead, he continued to struggle and roared at Analu. He opened his mouth, inhaled frantically, and the gas kept pouring into his body. Kacha, kacha, the dirt and mountains around him gradually appeared. After all, these are just dirt mountains formed by solidified soil, not really solid rock mountains. Ainalu's eyes flashed. He didn't expect Faye to continue struggling like this. Just as he was about to wave his hand to seal Tushin another layer, Luffy's position was suddenly blown apart. Sigh. Because Luffy got out of trouble, Zoro next to him also freed an arm. Hilt of his sword and swinging it violently, he also broke out of the ground and fell to the ground. "Thank you, Luffy." As Luffy and Zoro got out of trouble, Sanji also got out. Kick shattered a part of Tushin, and rescued Nami, Chopper and others. Analu looked at Luffy and the others, still with a contemptuous expression. Yao Yao clenched his fist at Luffy and the others, and threw it out. Clap Lala, countless dirt gathered frantically, and finally formed a huge fist with a diameter of several meters, and slammed it towards Luffy and the others. "Let me come." Luffy's body was inflated at the moment, and he shouted at Zoro, Sanji and the others. It seemed that some new magical effect had been developed, and the gas in the body was suddenly poured into the arm, and the arm suddenly swelled. The inflated arm is comparable to the one made of rock and earth by Analu. Luffy punched out. Two huge fists collided. Boom! A dull roar. After the two sides were deadlocked for a few seconds, Analu's rock and soil arm showed signs of fragmentation, and then spread all the way back, and finally completely collapsed. And Luffy's fist continued to bombard unstoppably, hitting Analu's body. Smashed Enel's body into pieces and flew backwards. "Good job, Luffy." Usopp and Chopper showed a touch of excitement. Nami also showed a hint of joy. "I didn't expect Luffy's punch to have such a strong power." The front side broke Enelu's tricks, and also knocked Enelu flying. Chapter 343. The Form of God, the Giant Enelu. But they were happy for a long time. Countless dirt gathered and reformed the body of Enelu not far away. This time, Enelu's face was no longer light, and his move was broken by Luffy, which made his face a little unbearable, and he was completely annoyed. "You have successfully angered me, Qinghai people." Enelu looked at Luffy and the others coldly. As his voice spit out, the ground began to shake violently, and countless dirt surged towards him frantically. Analu's voice continued to come from the dirt. "The power of the earth is not like you. Qinghai people can shake, not only you, but also that. 8 gods. All of these are things that only gods can rule." Under the shocked and horrified gazes of Nami and others, the mad surging of the soil, it became bigger and bigger, and finally turned into a giant of the earth that stood between the heavens and the earth, with a body that seemed to span a kilometer. The form of a god. Analu's voice came from the high sky, which was so huge that it was shocking, just bowed its head towards Luffy and the others. The shape of this giant, let alone what kind of giants, can't even be compared to Oz. It's an honor for you to see this shape. Analu's voice came from the giant of the earth, echoing dully on the island. At this moment, not only the Holy Land EPUB, but even the people on Angel Island in the distance, also saw the terrifying giant standing between the heavens and the earth. Countless people looked at the giant with shocking expressions. What is this? A priest's voice trembled. Sha Tang was also disturbed by Jingjing. He walked out of the palace and looked at the giant of earth in the distance. His expression changed, his pupils contracted, and he said, "What is that?" "It should be the power of the person who occupied EPUB." Giant Rhodes appeared next to her, with a very solemn expression, and said solemnly, "This is troublesome, I didn't expect his power to reach this level." Speaking of this, His face was a little ugly, and he said, "Although this kind of power can't break my defense, I can't stop him, he can easily destroy this island." When Sha Tang heard this, he panicked. If Angel Island is destroyed, she will have to bear part of the blame. And such a tragic incident, even if it only bears part of the blame, I am afraid it is not just as simple as a spanking. Hurry up and inform Wang Guo over there. I have already notified. The giant Rhodes looked at the clay giant standing in the sky with an ugly face, and said, "I am afraid that the headquarters will send people over now, and it will be too late to arrive." The whole atmosphere of Angel Island fell into panic. At the same time, the Holy Land of Kyoto, Luffy and others looked up at the huge giant. In addition to the shock in his eyes, he couldn't help but feel a mayfly shaking a tree in his heart. Too exaggerated. The giant in front of me is almost comparable in size to this island, and it's not on the same level as them at all. Even if I try my best, I'm afraid I can only smash a little finger. It's over. Nilu's dull voice came. The leg that was huge enough to crush a warship with one foot lifted up, slowly came to the top of Luffy and the others, and then stepped down. Luffy and the others all had their pupils contracted violently, and cold sweat broke out from their foreheads. At this time, Sanji was the first to react and shouted, "Escape! Run away!" Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 344, The Strongest in the World, Come on Stage. Sanji's voice woke up the shocked Nami and the others, and everyone fled to the distance with all their might. Fortunately, the giant of the earth was not fast and desperately fled, and finally escaped from the trampling area before the foot fell. The problem is that even though they escaped from the frontal trampling area, the violent shock caused by the footfall still directly swept Luffy, Zoro and others. Bang, 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 the impact flew upside down. Reluctantly stopped at a distance of dozens of meters, everyone stabilized their bodies. As he struggled to get up, he looked at the huge giant, but his back felt a chill. Even Luffy, it is difficult to raise any fighting spirit at this moment. Not fear, but facing such a huge monster, I don't know how to fight. I thought that after defeating Chihuahua, it would never be like when I was in Rog Town. I didn't expect to come to this empty island, but once again encountered a monster that is almost desperate. Such a huge thing, even those monsters in Rog Town before, I am afraid it is difficult to deal with. While Luffy and the others stiffened, the giant's legs lifted up again. Step just now, but Anilu increased his speed a little this time. But the foot hadn't stepped down, but stopped in midair. Because Anilu's attention was diverted, from Luffy and the others, to the front of him. I do not know when, came to a figure in front of the giant of the earth. Trampling Fan and the others, who desperately escaped from the unearthed giant, looked up, and also vaguely saw the figure suspended in the sky. That's. All had a vague sense of familiarity. After Nami's eyes flickered slightly, Ninko shrank and recognized the identity of the figure. Even though she was far away, she still recognized it, because the impression was too deep. Yagami Kanto, a bounty of 5 billion Baileys. The world's strongest man. The moment she recognized Yagami Kanto, Nami was finally I thought of what the 8 gods in the Ani intersection are. There is no doubt that it refers to Yagami Soto, that is to say, the ruler of this empty island is Yagami Soto. The great pirate standing at the top of the world. After thinking about it thoroughly, Nami looked up to the sky. Kangdo, the 8 gods in the middle, couldn't help but change his eyes slightly. Because the giant of the earth is so huge that it is despairing. Even if Yagami Kanto is the strongest in the world, facing such a big thing, I am afraid. Nami's eyes are full of endless tension. Qinghai people. Enel's dull voice came from the giant of the earth. The entire earth giant is controlled by him, which is equivalent to his huge body. The sound is naturally huge, so that people on Angel Island in the distance can hear it clearly. It's really you. 8 gods. Kangdu flew in the air, looking at the giant of the earth from a distance. He swept over with a domineering look, and directly captured Enel's body. I didn't expect that it was really Enelu, and looking at it like this, it was really a soil fruit of the natural system, that. A high-ranking fruit of a stone fruit. Anelu's luck is really good enough. I didn't expect it. I have such power. Nilu incarnated a giant of the earth, with a humanized face on his face, and said, I am the real God. Chapter 345, Kill Enelu in Seconds. The 8 gods Kangdu looked at him indifferently and said, with so much nonsense, I still can't fight. Enelu was silent for a second, and the dull voice resounded through the world. As you wish. Let me give you this Qinghai. God's punishment. As Anelu's voice fell, the gigantic earth giant raised his arm and smashed towards the Yagami Soto in the air. Of the earth, the size of Yagami Soto is like a mosquito and a human. Small that it is difficult to measure and cannot be compared at all. That huge fist smashed into the air of Yagami Kangdu, just like a mountain collapsed, wrapped in an irresistible power. Shattering. Seeing this scene, Luffy, Zoro, and the others all changed their faces drastically, but at this moment they were unable to do anything at all, and could only watch this scene from below. And on Angel Island in the distance, countless Sky Islanders also changed their color. Although they were far away, they couldn't see Yagami Soto, but they could hear Enelu's voice. Knowing that Yagami Kangdu appeared, and also knowing that Enelu was going to fight Yagami Kangdu. Yagami Kangdu has ruled the Sky Island for so long and possesses absolute power. Can say. The status of Yagami Kangdu is in the Sky Island, not only a god who suppresses everything with his power, but also an existence that countless people fear and admire. Although the power that Enelu shows now is terrifying, no one will have the idea of surrendering because of this, and they all look in that direction with a worried expression. His Royal Highness the 8 gods Kangdu. Ganfer stood on the edge of Angel Island, his face full of tension. If Yagami Soto loses to this guy, it is impossible to resist this terrifying power. Can predict what Angel Island will look like at that time. And under the tense and worrying gazes of countless people, the giant arm of the earth incarnated by Enelu finally swung up and smashed towards the face of Yagami Kangdu. Just at this moment, Yagami Kangdu's eyes were flat in the sky, and he also stretched out his right hand. Also folded his 5 fingers together, clenched his fist, and met the giant fist swung by Enelu. Even Yagami Kangdu was like a mosquito compared to the giant's fist. Not to mention Yagami Kangdu's fist, it was as small as the tip of a needle. Just the next moment, the 2 fists collided. The whole world was silent, and there was hardly any sound. Or if there is a sound, it is just an extremely dull muffled sound. It was as if even the sound itself was completely shattered. This moment, countless people's faces were sluggish, whether it was Luffy and the others, Ganfer and others on Angel Island, and even the giant Rhodes who was in charge of protecting the sugar. In the sight of everyone, they saw the giant of the earth, whose size was comparable to that of an island, standing between the heavens and the earth. The entire right arm has disappeared without a trace, and along with its right arm, there are still half of the head and half of the chest. Look back through the huge hole. I saw the higher clouds, split in 2 from the center, revealing a blue sky. Spreads all the way to the distance, until the end of the line of sight. Between heaven and earth, there is silence. Only the giant of the earth, who was missing his right arm, half of his chest and head, still stood between the heavens and the earth, and did not just fall down. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 346, Meet Again, Embarrassed Nami. Impossible. It's impossible. Anelu's voice came from the body of the earth giant, and the voice was actually a little trembling, and more of it was unbelievable. Ever since he got the power of the soil fruit, he felt stronger than ever before. Especially when standing on the land of Appayado, it seems that an island can be destroyed by flipping a hand. But even if he possesses such power, he is still no match for Yagami Kangdu. God's sanction. Enelu roared angrily, and the other arm that was left slapped towards Kangdu in the void again, wrapped in a deep sense of unwillingness. However, Yagami Kangdu threw another punch. Boom! An earth-shattering roar. Turbulent day and tiger, it poured into the huge arm of the giant of the earth, and it spread all the way to its whole body. And stumps all show signs of shattering. Kacha! Kacha! The whole body of the earth giant was like a crack, and the clods kept falling off, and finally fell apart completely. Turned into countless clods and scattered, and countless dust splashed in the roar. Seeing this scene, Luffy and the others, whose minds were blank, finally recovered slowly. There was still a hint of shock in his eyes. Far away. Of the Angel Island Palace, Sha Tang watched this scene from afar, and let out a long sigh of relief. Now you don't have to worry about being beaten by Yagami Kangdu. Giant Rhodes stood next to the sugar, his eyes were full of awe and admiration. He couldn't help but said, Master Yagami Kangdu's strength is really too strong, I'm still inferior. After all, he is already the strongest in the world. Sugar can't help but mutter in a low voice. In her opinion, when he was taken from Dressrosa before, Yagami Kangdu was still far from the four emperors, and at best he was at the level of Chiwahai. But now time has passed by, but it has come to the apex of this world. And as a special cadre, her current status is also rising. Here in Angel Island, you can eat whatever candy you want, and you can play whatever you want. Whoa! A large piece of dirt smashed in front of Luffy and the others. This part of the soil seems to have life, constantly squirming. Difficult to transform into the figure of Enel, and it seemed that he was about to stand up. But before it was fully condensed and formed, Yagami Kangdu, who fell from the sky, stepped on his head and directly pushed the whole person he stepped onto the ground again. Anilu struggled desperately. Bang! Yagami Kangdu stomped his foot again, and the day tiger bombarded Enilu's head. He completely fainted from the shock, and finally stopped struggling. After knocking Anilu out, Yagami Kangdu turned to look at Luffy and the others not far away. Browsed slightly, but he didn't expect them to be here, and said, meet again. That is. When Nami saw Yagami Kanto's eyes falling on her, she couldn't help but smile. A little embarrassed, he raised his hand and greeted Iori Kangdu, not knowing what to call Iori Kangdu. Yagami Kangdu didn't care about her appearance, but asked her, I have a question. Why are you here? Cough, cough, this. Nami coughed twice, trying to say that they were here to deal with Anilu. But Anilu beat them down just now, and then was defeated by Yagami Kangdu in an understatement, so that she couldn't say what she said. Chapter 347. The Fruit of the Natural Department, the Fruit of the Earth. Usopp was a little frightened of Yagami Kangdu. Seeing Yagami Kangdu's bad expression, he couldn't help but quickly said, That, we heard that someone robbed the Holy Land and came here to help. Yagami Kangdu gave Usopp a slightly strange look, but he didn't quite believe what he said. In his opinion, it should have been Luffy's brainstorm and rushed to the Holy Land, or Zoro lost his way and brought a group of people into the Holy Land. He turned to look at Nami and asked Nami, Is that so? That's it. Nami hurriedly responded to Yagami Soto. Usopp's instinct is to lie, but Nami is no different. But Yagami Sudo's right hand pressed on the hilt of the sword, and a little bit of the soul fruit's power was stimulated, so Nami couldn't tell a lie. See you. Yagami Kanto rubbed his chin. Since you broke into the Holy Land because you wanted to deal with this guy, it's understandable, and it doesn't count as a violation of the laws of the Sky Island. The moment the voice fell, Kangdu Yagami raised his hand and slapped Luffy and the others. Before Luffy and the others could react, everyone was enveloped by a force. Flew up and took off. An acceleration in midair, and suddenly flew to Angel Beach on Angel Island in the distance. Usopp and Chopper screamed in fright, and everyone finally smashed on Angel Beach. But because Angel Beach is a soft island, it looks ridiculous with just the body embedded in it. Luffy and the others were slapped away with a slap. Only then did Yagami Kangdu look down at Nailu, who was stepping on his feet, revealing a slight smile. I didn't expect it. It turned out to be a soil fruit. If it's the Don Quixote family, the top Kadri Pika's stone fruit is nothing, that ability is too limited, and it's almost useless at sea. The soil fruit of the nature system is a completely different level. As one of the devil fruit abilities of the nature system, the soil fruit may not be as powerful as light, ice and magma in terms of simple attack. But in terms of defensive properties, there is no doubt about it. It's like the trick that Anilu just performed. Would be completely swept away in front of the earth giant of that size. Moreover, the giant of the earth has self-healing ability, and the body of Anilu is very small. Hidden in the depths of the earth giant's body, it can be said that it cannot be hit at all. Unless it is a level of strength like Yagami Kangdu, who can knock down the entire body with one punch, can Anilu be defeated so easily. Replace with someone else. Even Akihito Akainu. General, maybe he can beat Anilu, but he can't solve the battle with 3 or 2 strokes. It's a pity. After a chuckle, Yagami Kangdu couldn't help shaking his head again. If this fruit is obtained by him, then he can directly create a level battle similar to the incarnation of a hurricane, which is directly a naval admiral level. And now that Anilu ate this devil fruit, he could only make Anilu into a puppet, and it would be difficult for him to reach the level of an admiral in combat. However, the combat power of Anilu can be directly put on the bright side, because no one in Qinghai knows this number 1 person at all. Unlike the Golden Lion Shiki and Katakuri, if these two show up, they will definitely cause an uproar. It cannot be used easily until the final battle or as a last resort. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 348, Dangerous Plan, All Members Convene. Anilu was eventually escorted back to the base of Cake Island. Yagami Kangdu cut out the 4th soul incarnation, and made Anilu the 4th puppet. The Ani Road of Earth and Stone, the ability to master is the natural soil fruit. The soil fruit is a single level, which is above the glutinous fruit of Katakuri. But Katakuri's devil fruit has long been awakened, and it is not much worse than the soil fruit. In addition, Katakuri is proficient in domineering, so the puppet of Anilu is not as good as Katakuri. But the soil fruit also has its strengths, that is, it can easily create a huge giant of the soil, and it has strong defense and regeneration capabilities. When it comes to large-scale attacks, the Ani Road of Soil and Stone is more important than that of glutinous rice. Above Katakuri, the 2 puppets are not much different in difficulty. It's almost time. Yagami Kangdu looked at the puppets in front of him and the hurricane incarnation floating beside him, his eyes twinkling and muttering. He turned around, took a deep breath, and said to Jeers, inform all captains, except for the 8th and 9th divisions, to gather at the Cake Island base. Finally, there's going to be a big move. Geldzjan smiled coldly, and he hadn't stretched his muscles for a long time. After answering, he immediately went out and notified the captains of the various lines. Since the battle with Whitebeard, the Yagami pirates have not had a big gathering of the entire captains for a long time. Some island. Fujitora, who was betting dice in the casino, whispered in a low voice, raised his head slightly, and showed a trace of solemnity on his face. Are you going to start? ... Somewhere in the sea, Shiryu of the Rain split a pirate ship in half, stepping on the moon in midair, slowly retracting the blade, holding a cigar and saying, "It's all trash, you dare to invade all nations." Quote. As soon as the voice fell, the phone bug in his arms rang. After Shiryu of the Rain answered the answer, his eyes flickered slightly, and he grinned, revealing a look of joy that he hadn't seen in a long time. He turned around, fell a few steps, returned to his boat, and shouted at the people under his command, go back to Cake Island. ... An empty plain somewhere. More than a dozen giants gathered here, exercising and fighting with each other. 4. The giants, they can fight for 100 years for a trivial matter. Their view of time is very different from that of humans, and years are like a flick of a finger. Hey, Helding, calling all the captains. Statham came to Helding's side, holding a phone bug in his hand, grinned at Helding, and said, "It looks like there's going to be another war." Hierding opened his eyes, and there was a faint flash of thunder in his eyes. He stood up and said solemnly, "It is our honor to fight for Lord Kingdu of the Eight Gods." A day later. Inside the base of Cake Island. Except for Gage, the captain of the 8th Division, Boyahan Cook, the captain of the 9th Division, and Nina, the captain of the 6th Division, all the other captains have already arrived. The captains are responsible for different things, and some captains have not seen each other for a year or a half. Captain Shiryu seems to be getting stronger again. Statham walked past Shiryu of the Rain, sensing that Shiryu of the Rain's aura seemed to change, and couldn't help but smile. Shiryu of the Rain didn't answer. He held a cigar and showed a dangerous smile. Chapter 349. The Eight Gods Pirates, the convergence is complete. Boss 8 God Kingdu hasn't come yet. Hierding pouted and couldn't help saying, "We seem to be a little early." Gilles glanced at him and said, "I don't know what's the benefit of coming earlier, but if you come late because of that kind of thing, I think you might be out of luck." Helding shuddered. Although Gels ranks below him, Gels is now closer to Yagami Soto. Moreover, the words he said were a bit offensive, but he didn't dare to entangle them at this moment, and muttered to himself. And just as many captains were communicating with each other, there was a sound of footsteps outside the door. I saw Nina walked in first. She was wearing a black cloak, and the sleeves of the cloak were embroidered with the handwriting of 6 feet. Fujitora and others are also wearing cloaks, and the cuffs of the cloaks are marked with 1 foot, 2 feet and 2. This is a new cape belonging to Captain of the Nations. "Captain Nina, you are here." Helding greeted Nina. He didn't care much about the other captains, and he wasn't even afraid of Shiryu of Rain and Fujitora. But only Nina, he couldn't ignore it. Because of the relationship between Yagami Kanto and Nina, everyone present could not be more clear. "Hasn't Master Yagami Kingdu arrived yet?" Statham also looked at Nina and asked Nina. Nina walked to her own position. Her eyes were calm, and she said to Statham and the others, "I'll be there soon." Almost as soon as Nina's voice fell, the footsteps sounded again. The door was pushed open again. A figure walked in first, and he was like a corpse. The whole person lowered his head, his arms drooped, he walked into the door without saying a word, and stood beside the door. Then, a tornado that was visible to the naked eye flew in. The little tornado had eyes and a mouth, and looked around curiously. Finally, wearing a black cloak and embroidered blood-red cuffs, walked in. There were no numbers on the cuffs, only 2 blood-colored lines. Master Yagami Kingdu. Boss of the 8 Gods Kingdu. Captain. When many captains saw Yagami Kingdu appear, they all spoke to Yagami Kingdu. They have been following Yagami Kingdu for more than a year or two, and Yagami Kingdu has made all the captains willing to live under him, both in terms of strength and behavior. Even Shiryu of Rain is only a little dissatisfied with Fujitora's position, and has no disobedience to Yagami Soto. Everyone is here, not bad. Yagami Kingdu smiled faintly at the many captains present, and pointed to the corpse-like figure next to him, and said, "This is one of my puppets, and will participate in this operation, and its strength is not much worse than everyone here." When Yagami Kingdu said the words, the eyes of everyone present suddenly flashed. Of course they wouldn't question whether Yagami Kanto's words were true or not, but if it was true, a puppet would have the strength to approach them. That Yagami Kingdu secretly masters is probably something that these captains don't know much about. The incarnation of the hurricane, the strength is not inferior to everyone here. Briefly explaining that, the corpse-like thing was his own puppet, Yagami Kingdu reached out and pulled the hurricane incarnation. Hurricane incarnate under Yagami Kingdu's tug, instantly deformed and compressed. Turned into a typhoon emitting a bright white light, faintly exuding a palpitating aura. Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 350, Pre-War Planning. Everyone present is proficient in domineering powerhouses. If you see the domineering and simply perceive it, you will know how terrifying power this wind ball contains. Except for the team captains of the 8th and 9th teams that have been added over the years, all of a sudden there are 2 more powerful captain-level combat forces. Hyrding and the others who were present couldn't help but change their expressions. The Iori pirates have become stronger, which is of course a good thing. But this also means that the authority of Yagami Soto will become more terrifying. Even the people they are here are no longer necessary combat power for one nation. Of course. They themselves know very well that they are the original captains who founded the nations. As long as certain principles are not violated, the captain's position will always be them. The reason why the 8th and 9th divisions were not notified this time is because this operation will be a covert operation and will not be made public. Yagami Kangdu walked to his seat and stood, glanced at the captain on the left and the many captains on the right, and said in a deep voice. The many captains present have actually been connected, and they all have certain guesses about what will happen next. Among them, Fujitora and Nina and others have even known it for a long time. That's right. Our next move is, destroy the beast pirates. This sentence sounded in the hall, but it didn't make any waves. The colors of the many captains present did not change much. Is no longer what it used to be. Back then, it was very difficult for them to defeat all the beasts, let alone destroy the 100 pirates. But now they are already standing in the position of the strongest pirate group in the world. In this sea, apart from world government, there is no force that can make them retreat, and neither can the other 4 emperors. It looks like the death knell of the beast pirates is about to sound. Statham chuckled lightly, and the laughter spread throughout the hall. Yagami Kangdu was very satisfied with the attitude of the many captains present. No one raised any objections, and no one even asked anything. This kind of situation is his favorite. Then, let's talk about the action points this time. Yagami Kangdu said in a slow tone, the 100 beast pirates are now entrenched in Wano Kingdom, and the location of Wano Kingdom has been locked by intelligence forces. This time, we take the initiative to invade and go to the country of Wano. Kaido and the general of the country of Wano, the Black Charcoal Orochi, are now in a cooperative relationship. The specific information of this Black Charcoal Orochi is not clear, but the strength is probably not inferior to the 3 disasters of the beast pirates. Speaking of this, Yagami Kanto's tone changed a little more serious. That is to say, this time we are facing the 3 disasters of the beast pirates, the 2 generals that the thieves escaped before, and this black charcoal serpent. No problem dealing with the first of the 3 disasters, and the incarnation of a hurricane has no problem suppressing one of the 3 disasters. The remaining 2 generals, Helding and Gertz, who have grown up, are enough to deal with it. As for the black charcoal snake, there is no problem in handing it over to Standen. As for other combat powers, the Giant Corps, the vice-captains of the 7th Divisions, and the puppet Enelu of the Earth and Stone are enough to defeat them with a crushing force. The last remaining beasts, Kaido, are naturally made by Yagami Kangta himself. To deal with. Chapter 351. The 4 emperors are the strongest, come to the country of Wano. Back then, he relied on the fact that Kaido was not familiar with his abilities, and he was able to draw a tie with Kaido of the beasts. But the difference between him now and his strength at that time is more than 1 or 2 points. Even if Kaido can become stronger, he has also improved some domineering because of the battle. But the extent of improvement is far less than that of Yagami Kangdu, and it is impossible to compare with him. That is to say, is it only our captain who will go to this operation? After listening to Yagami Sudo's brief introduction, Fujitora asked in a deep voice to Yagami Sudo. Yagami Kangdu did not answer. Nina took a step forward and answered this detailed question on behalf of Yagami Kangdu. She opened her eyes lightly, and said calmly, in addition to the captain, there are also the giant corps and the vice-captains, among them also including Reiju, the vice-captain of the 8th Division. Fujitora nodded slightly. If this is the case, then it is indeed enough to turn Wano country upside down without carrying other troops. Even if the 100 beast pirates could not be destroyed, it would not be too difficult to defeat the opponent. When to act? Shiryu of the Rain was holding a cigar and exhaling a breath of smoke. A wisp of heat appeared on his body, causing the ground under his feet to turn black, and asked slowly. 8 Gods Kingdu looked at him, smiled lightly, and said, now. No advance notice is ever given, and a notice is direct action. Mention the beast pirates, even the world government would not be able to know anything in advance. The invasion of Wano country this time, before it broke out completely, I am afraid that no one knew about it, and it was unexpected. The combat power of the 100 beast pirates, and the specific plans, will be read out carefully by Nina, and Yagami Kingdu narrowed his eyes slightly, and the many captains said, if this permission fails, I will make the beast pirates become history. On the Cake Island side, when the captain and vice-captain assembled. Nearly half a great route away from here, the Straw Hats arrived at the Seven Waters City, and finally made a big noise there. Against the New Nine under the world government, and finally defeat the New Nine and rescue Frankie. This news has caused great headaches for governments around the world. The world government did not expect that they would lose to the Straw Hats, causing Hades' design drawings to fly completely. And when the world government questioned Qingzi, the naval admiral in charge of the matter, Qingzi shied away and said that the espionage organization was involved, and he was inconvenient to intervene, and the 5 old stars were half dead. Of the 7 Waters has attracted the attention of the high-level officials of the world government. Various intelligence agencies have never discovered that many captains of the Yagami pirates have assembled together. Together with the giant corps and many vice-captains, they headed towards the depths of the New World. Marching target, Wano country. The route of travel is the sky. The possibility of being discovered at sea is almost eliminated, and by the time the world government is aware of it, Yagami Soto has already completely invaded the country of Wano, and everything will be unstoppable. The country of Wano. An altitude of about 3 kilometers above the sea level, a ship is flying in the clouds, shuttling among the clouds, moving stably and gently. Yagami Sudo and Fujitora take turns to control the ship, which can basically be maintained in the sky. Is that the country of Wano? Gelds came to the deck and looked down. In the obliquely lower area, an island covered by a special ocean current appeared. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 352. Arrogant Boy, Talk to Kaido of the Beasts About Life. Statham stood by, looked at the permanent pointer, and said, if this permanent pointer is not broken, it should be here. Go down. Yagami Kingdu spoke calmly, lifted his foot and stepped on it lightly. The day tiger was excited, and the whole ship began to descend downward. Finally came to the shore of Wano country and entered the sea smoothly. Shiryu of the Rain took a cigar and took a step forward. He jumped out of the deck and landed on the shore, looking ahead. Bet, B. Fujitora slowly walked down the gangway. Helding, Statham and the others also jumped down one after another, landing on the shore, and finally Statham and the others of the Giant's Corps. Go directly to Kaido. Shiryu of the Rain asked the Yagami Kingdu. He couldn't wait a little bit. The last time he fought with the Beast Pirates, they suffered a lot of loss. This time, the gathering of forces was for the purpose of destroying the Beast Pirates, and it was naturally aggressive. Let's have some morning tea first. 8 Gods Kingdu was not in a hurry, and said casually, isn't it a good idea to have them come over, not to mention that we haven't had breakfast yet. Hearing Yagami Kingdu's words, Statham couldn't help laughing next to him, and Jeers also smiled. Went to Wano country for morning tea. Looking at this sea, how many people can do such a thing? Go. Yagami Kanto opened his mouth casually and walked forward. Shiryu of the Rain and the others also followed one after another, showing contemptuous expressions. That's right. Just drink morning tea and wait for Kaido to come to the door. The group walked forward and came to a small town. This town is called Pickle Town, which is a small town in Julie, the country of Wano. At the edge of Pickle Town, there was a tea house, and Yagami Kangdu and the others walked over casually. May I ask what you need? Ah. The size of Hancock walked out of the tea house. He is also a little taller than Yagami Aoto, wearing a cute kimono. The pure and moving big eyes looked at Yagami Kangdu and the others, showing a surprised expression. In Wano country dressed differently from other regions. Of Yagami Kanto and the others seemed strange at first glance, obviously out of tune with Wano Kingdom. You are foreigners. The waiter of the tea house, a Jew, looked at Yagami Kangdu and the others in astonishment. God Kangdu glanced at Xiaoju, and said to himself, It's quite beautiful, it's just a little taller. Nina said with a smile, it should be that you are a little shorter. Yagami Kangdu, Hyerding and the others, only to see that everyone was looking forward to themselves, with an expression that didn't hear anything. The 8 gods Kangdu said with the same expression, your tea house is a little small, move a table and come outside. This. Aju still had a trace of sweat on her forehead, and she didn't know how to deal with it for a while. Wano country is closed to the country all the year round, coupled with the influence of special ocean currents, there are very few outsiders who can reach Wano country. And outsiders are considered gangsters, all arrested. Aju bit her lip and said, you should leave here quickly, this country is very unfriendly to outsiders, and it may attract warriors later. It's okay. 8 gods Kangdu waved at Aju and said indifferently, we're just here for a morning tea, and we'll go to the beast's Kaido to talk about life later. Chapter 353. When the storm starts, the giver will come. Aju had a speechless expression, and the corners of her mouth trembled slightly. In this Wano country, who doesn't know the name of Kaido, that is a powerful pirate who cooperates with the General Black Charcoal Orochi, and even the Black Charcoal Orochi seems to have just become Kaido's subordinates. Could this group of people be crazy and die? At this time, a woman also wearing a kimono came out, she is the owner of the tea house. Aju, go make tea. Ahi spoke to Aju. Aju was stunned for a moment, and said, oh, but if that's the case. Ahi shook his head and said, it's all right, let's go make some tea, these guys don't seem to be making fun of you. Besides, they want to drink tea, how can we, a small tea house, have the ability to stop them? Aju bit her lip, hesitation flashed on her face, and finally walked slowly into the tea house. Now it's about to be implicated. She sighed inwardly. Soon. A table was moved out, and Yagami Kanto sat down casually. Fujitora, Shiryu Rain and the others didn't mind either, they all sat down around the table. Aju bit her lip and silently came over with the teapot, pouring tea for Yagami Kangdu and the others one by one. And at this time, someone in the town not far away discovered Yagami Kangdu and the others, which caused a burst of exclamations, which spread quickly. A large number of outsiders appeared in the town. The news spread throughout the town at a rapid speed, and even spread to the entire Kuri area, until it spread to the entire Wano country. That is the first cup of tea in Yagami Kangdu and others, just now. 2 strange-looking people appeared and walked over with cold faces. Oops, it's for the giver. While pouring the second cup of tea for Yagami Kangdu, his pupils shrank slightly. His hands trembled uncontrollably, and the tea spilled on the table. When Yagami Kangdu heard Aju's words, he couldn't help showing a thoughtful expression. Isn't the giver the ones in the army of capable people who ate the artificial devil fruit, but, isn't Caesar in my hands now? Thinking of this, Yagami Kangdu couldn't help shaking his head slightly. It seems that even without Caesar and Doflamingo, Kaido the Beast still obtained the artificial devil fruit through other channels. But it is also true that there is more than one scientist around Vegapunk. Vegapunk should not be the only one who knows how to make artificial devil fruits. Madam, this. Aju was in no mood to pour more tea, and turned to look at the proprietress, Ahe. Ahi was standing at the door of the tea-house at the moment, looking at the two givers who appeared from a distance. Seemingly forcing his composure, his eyes turned to Yagami Kangdu and the others. The two givers are getting closer. Outsiders dare to appear so blatantly. You're not too brave. Two givers, both natives, became artificial devil fruit users. At this moment, he came to the outside of the town, and when he saw Yagami Kangdu and his party, he suddenly showed a cold expression. One of them held a huge machete in his hand, and his arm had silver hair, like an orangutan-like arm. However, neither Yagami Soto nor Fujitora, no one looked at him. Until he came to the place closest to Shiryu of the Rain and was about to slash it with a machete. Light flashed in Shiryu's eyes, and he snorted coldly. Pick up the teacup and pour the tea in it. Phailu reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 354, Happiness and Unfortunate, all have your heart. Kacha, kacha. The moment the tea was poured, it evaporated into a mist of fire in the void. It spread over in an instant, and directly burned the giver whose arm was like an orangutan. Seeing this scene, Aju suddenly showed a look of surprise, and there was also a look of disbelief on her face. It burned out, how could this happen? The remaining giver was stunned when he saw this scene, and then showed a hint of horror. His expression suddenly became tense. He did not dare to move forward, and asked sharply from a distance, You. What have you done? The tone was very harsh, but there was a faint trace of trembling and fear. Shiryu of the Rain was too lazy to pay attention to him. Run away. Gels, who was sitting next to him, took a sip from the teacup and didn't look at him. Instead, he looked at the table and said in a flat tone, If you want to survive, just run away, even your boss's boss wouldn't dare to come up like this. You scared people. Statham smiled, and the whole person suddenly disappeared silently. Black shadow appeared behind the giver like a flash. The giver only felt his scalp explode, and the hairs all over his body stood up. The whole person was about to flee almost instinctively, but a mahogany walking stick instantly blocked his front. Don't rush to escape. Statham smiled, and there seemed to be some kind of hypnotic magic in his voice, and said, Go and tell Kaido that the Iori pirates are here to visit. Oh no, it should be said that the Iori pirates are here to play, go. As Statham's words fell, that name's mind was already filled with Statham's words. Back and forth in his ears, Dutansen's words echoed. He fled forward desperately, and disappeared in a flash. And at the same time, Statham's figure flickered and disappeared again. When he reappeared, he had already returned to the position he was sitting in before, and picked up the teacup again. The tea here tastes just average. Hireding took a sip, still said what he wanted to say, and at the same time looked at Fujitora next to him, and said, Don't you find it hard to swallow? Fujitora laughed, took a sip of tea, and said, Rough tea and light meals are enough to satisfy your appetite, and a hard life makes you more accustomed to it. Hireding said speechlessly, You can drink good tea, why should you drink rough tea? Several people spoke one by one, and after a long time, Aju and Ahi, who were in shock, finally came to their senses. Ahi guessed that with so many people appearing in Wano Country's Yagami Kangdu gang, they wouldn't be ordinary people. Sure enough, she guessed right, the giver was completely vulnerable in front of Yagami Kanto and others. But Yagami Kanto and others seemed to be challenging Kaido, which made her heart sink. Kaido's horror, too. The residents of Wano, it is simply too clear, it is an existence that is even more terrifying than General Black Charcoal Orochi. You. Aju looked at the giver who was burnt to ashes, and looked at Shiryu of the Rain. Although he came back to his senses, there was still a hint of shock in his eyes. Eight-God Kangdu glanced at her sideways, and said, Are you worried about involving you? But if there is danger, there will be a reward. Drinking your morning tea once won't be in vain. But Aju wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Nina next to her. Nina took a sip from the teacup and said, "Don't worry, it's unfortunate and lucky to be involved, and it won't be long before you both will be different from before." Chapter 355. The Beast Pirates, complete the assembly. Just when Yagami Kangdu and the others continued to drink tea of Wano Kingdom, some distance away from Kuri, in a luxurious palace somewhere, Beast Kaido was sitting cross-legged on the ground, holding a wine gourd and taking a sip. "You said, Yagami is coming to Wano country." After taking a sip of wine, he looked at the nervous subordinate in front of him. The subordinate said in a trembling voice, "Yes. According to the description given to the giver, it should be the person of the 8 gods, and it seems that all the captains have come." "Oh." Beast Kaido snorted, put down the wine gourd, and said, "In other words, they are here to fight." "It should be. That's how it should be." The subordinate's body trembled, and his face was full of tension. He is very clear about the expansion of the 100 beast pirates over the years. He is also very clear about the horror of the 8 gods pirates. Once the fight begins, it must be turned upside down. What the hell, did Yagami go crazy, and he ran to Wano country without saying a word to start a war with them? Just like their boss Kaido, like a lunatic. Woo. Kaido stood up, a domineering aura suddenly swayed in the palace. He grinned, and said, "It's on my territory, that. Boy god, go and call Jack and the others." "Yes, Lord Kaido." The subordinate responded with a trembling voice, immediately ran out of the palace. In the palace, besides Kaido, there is another person, sitting in the dark. He is the general of Wano, the Black Charcoal Serpent. Black Charcoal Snake held a glass of wine and said slowly, "The 8 gods pirates, is it? That, the strongest pirate group? There's something to be said for it." Kaido touched the back of his head and took another sip. The Black Charcoal Snake said slowly, "Since they have all hit the country of Wano, they can't be indifferent, and they must be taught a hard lesson." Following Kaido's orders, of the 100 beast pirates from all over the country of Wano gathered at the fastest speed. The 3 disasters are not far away at the moment, and they will arrive soon. Iori, that guy came to Wano country. Shinsmuji also stood up suddenly after hearing the news, and there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Standing Shing snagged next to her, he said coldly, "He is so arrogant. He dares to go deep into the country of peace alone and go to the base camp of the beast pirates. He will have to pay the price of blood for his arrogance." The beast pirates. Complete the assembly. Now. The villagers in Pickle Town have long since disappeared without a trace. All have been hiding, and some have even fled to faraway places. The only ones left were Aju and Ahe, who didn't escape, because there was no point in escaping. So many people saw them together with Yagami Soto and his party. Inexplicably, I got involved in this kind of thing. Ahi and Aju were staying not far from Yagami Kingta and the others. It was also next to the tea house, and the expression on his face could not be calm. Ahi frowned and thought for a while, then said to Aju, who was beside him, "If you have a chance, run away." Where to escape? A hint of helplessness between Aju's brows. In this country of Wano, where else could she escape? Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 356. The war is about to break out. Ahi said, "Try to escape from Wano country." Aju shook her head. Just as she was about to say something, the earth suddenly began to tremble slightly. As a samurai, she is clearly aware of this. Her face changed slightly, and she sensed the direction of the movement. I couldn't help but look in that direction, but there was nothing in that direction. Boom, boom, the tremors of the earth began to become stronger as time passed. Ahi next to him also sensed something was wrong, and also raised his head and looked in the direction Aju was looking at. Although nothing appeared in that direction, a suppressed aura was already shrouded in this direction. Let the whole sky seem to become in an instant dark clouds. Here it is. Yagami Kanto looked at the teacup on the table, and there was half a cup of tea left in the teacup. A circle of ripples appeared because of the trembling of the earth. Shiryu of the Rain and the others were still sitting in the same place, their expressions all unchanged. Everyone present is already a figure standing at the top of the sea, and almost all of them can make Mount Tai collapse in front of them without changing their color. Boom, boom, boom. As the sound grew louder, a black shadow finally appeared in that direction. Glance, everyone has a different strange shape, and all of them are capable people. The able-bodied army under the 100 Beasts pirates. With the emergence of the able-bodied army, the larger shadows gradually became clearer. It was a gigantic mammoth, one of the 3 plagues, Jack of the Drought. And as time passed, a tall woman also appeared on the other side. It's the original Thieves General, Myuji. How could it be? This number is too exaggerated, really hit. Even the 3 disasters. Ahi and Aju looked at the dark figure from a distance, and couldn't help feeling a little suffocated. Even though the other party was still far away, that kind of oppressive feeling came over like an overwhelming sea. In front of such a huge army, ordinary people, let alone fighting, can't even pick up weapons, and they will be shocked to the ground by the momentum. Let's go. Yagami Kangdu stood up first and put down the teacup. Fujitora and the others stood up one after another and followed behind the slaughtered Yagami Soto. The group just walked over to meet the black army of able-bodied people. Ahi and Aju also saw this scene, and they couldn't help but breathe a little stagnant. This group of people really want to fight with the beast pirates. Step, 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 the 3 disasters have all appeared, and the 2 generals have joined appear. Besides these 5 people, there is one other person who also exudes the same tyrannical aura. There is no doubt that he is the general of the Wano country, the Black Charcoal Serpent. Behind the 6 people, a figure as thick as a mountain appeared. The fall seems to cause the ground to shake, and it is Kaido the Beast. As that guy, Iori Kingta. It doesn't look like much. Able-bodied legions, some of the native givers of Wano Kingdom looked at the Yagami Kingdu who was walking over from a distance, and someone spoke. There is no bulky body, nor any special appearance. Doesn't look like a strong man at all, as if it can be knocked down with a single punch. Watch me give him an arrow. A gift giver narrowed his eyes, grabbed his bow and arrow, and aimed at Yagami Kangdu from a distance. If he can kill Yagami Kangdu with one arrow, that would be a great achievement. Chapter 357. The power of one punch shakes the world. How can someone who is so concerned by Lord Kaido be so easily frightened by you? The other giver next to him shook his head, but did not stop him. Shoot an arrow and shoot an arrow, so what? If this Yagami Kangdu really was shot to death by accident, he would have done a great job all of a sudden. But before the arrow given to the giver could be shot out, they saw Yagami Kangdu and his party had already stopped. And Yagami Kangdu was wearing a black cloak and looked at Kaido the Beast. I haven't seen you in a few years, stay safe, Kaido. These words fell, and a domineering arrogance was so brazenly pressing towards the front. The giver, like a rat-headed man, only felt an irresistible oppression crushing his chest. His breathing became extremely heavy, as if a large stone was pressed against his chest. Of Yagami Kangdu that looked like an ordinary person suddenly enlarged infinitely at this moment, completely occupying all of his pupils. Immediately after, his eyes rolled up, and foam came out of his mouth. Unable to bear the shock of the overlord domineering, he passed out just like that. Under the domineering arrogance of Yagami Kangdu, the advance of the Confederate Legion was stopped in an instant. The dozens of givers at the forefront fell one after another like dominoes. Until the beasts Kaido also released the overlord domineering, this can be stopped. Come to my place to be domineering, it seems that you want to decide the outcome this time, Yashin boy. Defeated that white-bearded old man, what you did is really beautiful. Beast Kaido didn't show any anger. On the contrary, just looking at Yashin Kangdu with such a face full of flesh, an overwhelming oppression naturally swayed away. 8 gods, Kangdu said calmly. Yes, this time I came here to destroy you. Seeing Yagami Kangdu bluntly set out his purpose, Beast Kaido grinned, but he felt that it was very in line with his own temperament, and said, if you want to take Lao Su's head, then you can try it. Whoosh! Almost at the moment when Kaido's voice fell, Yagami Kangdu took a step forward and disappeared very abruptly. When he appeared again, Yagami Soto was already in front of Kaido. The whole person is floating in the air, the 5 fingers of the right hand are folded into a fist, and a day tiger surrounds the fist. Om! Yagami Soto punched Kaido. 100 Beast Kaido roared, and also threw a punch. The jet black armed color domineering attached to his fist also directly stimulated his own strength to the extreme. That Yagami Kangdu would make a bold move without saying a few words. Those who were closest to Kaido, the givers, even failed to respond. The 2 forces that shook the sky and the earth just collided together. Boom! 2 disproportionately sized fists collided in the void. The entire void seemed to turn into a lake in an instant, and ripples visible to the naked eye swayed in all directions, centered on the collision between the fists of Yagami Kangta and Kaido. The terrifying aftermath, almost in an instant, made the ground under Kaido's feet tumble like an ocean wave, sweeping all around. Punch shakes the world. Philo reminds you. 3 things to read, collect, recommend, and share. Chapter 358. Punch back Kaido and overwhelm the audience. Ah! The countless givers were screaming in horror, and they were directly involved in the aftermath, without any resistance at all. If the distance is too close, the body will be fragmented directly. And a little further away, blood spurted out of his mouth, and his body made a cracking sound of bones breaking. Only the cadres who gave the recipients really hit, as well as the more senior cadres Sanzai and others. Only in this aftermath did he maintain his figure, but he also took a deep breath. The 8 gods Kangdu. Star Smudge looked at Yagami Kanto who collided with Kaido's fist. Although there was hatred, there was also a tremor in his eyes at this moment. Even if she was a former general, in front of Yagami Kangdu at this moment, she couldn't bring up any fighting intent. Because just by seeing the domineering perception, you can perceive how big the gap is between you and Yagami Kangdu. And, more importantly, Smoothie could clearly feel that Yagami Kangdu's imposing manner and strength now surpassed that of when he was fighting. You seem to have become a little stronger too, Kaido. Yagami Kangta's Hiroto and Kaido's fists collided constantly, and the aftermath swayed one after another. While letting the earth roll like waves, he slowly opened his mouth to Kaido. And just at the moment when the voice fell, Yagami Kangdu let out a low voice. Right fist was suddenly sent forward, facing Kaido's fist. Bang! The turbulent day tiger suddenly exploded. I saw Kaido, the beast, staggering directly to the rear. The huge body fell a few meters in one step. Then 10 steps in a row, he retreated to dozens of meters away. Seeing this scene, Shiryu of the Rain and the others showed unexpected expressions. But the many givers of the 100 Beasts pirates, and even the 3 disasters and others, showed a bit of disbelief and shock. Master Kaido. How is it possible? Countless people exclaimed in unison. Kaido, the beast, was actually repelled by Yagami Kangdu head-on. And it was a punch to the front, and was beaten back. The 3 disasters, but they know very well how strong the beast Kaido is. Even if they attacked with all their strength, Kaido stood there and let them fight without taking a step back, but at this moment, he was kicked back by Yagami Kangdu. You have become stronger. Yagami Kangdu looked at Kaido, slowly retracted his fist, and said, but I've become stronger. 100 Beast Kaido's face was sullen, unable to see his face clearly. Whoosh! Yagami Kangdu didn't stop, he lifted his foot and stepped in the air, immediately. There was a sound explosion. Stepping on the void, he charged directly towards Kaido, and landed another punch. Today's Kaido has also strengthened a little, but Yagami Kingdo's power has recovered a lot. Boom! Another punch. The ground beneath Kaido's feet cracked open inch by inch, spreading in all directions like a spider web. The thick arms also burst out with blue veins, but they still couldn't resist the power of Yagami Kingdo's fist. Master Kaido. There were 3 disasters next to him, screaming in surprise, and subconsciously wanting to step forward. But at this moment, a small tornado flew out from Yagami Kingdo's sleeve. The little tornado came directly into the air, waving the wind-shaped small arm visible to the naked eye, and let out a crisp, super fierce, shout. Chapter 359. Multiple Wind Blades, Hurricanes Show Their Power. Yahaha, multiple wind blades. Mengmeng's cute appearance can't hide the terrifying power contained in it. Inspired by the soul incarnation of Yagami Kingdo, the power of the hurricane fruit was channeled out, and in an instant it turned into a storm that covered the sky and the sun. There are countless wind blades, as if the great swordsman's combat power is fully open. Continuously slashed one after another, sweeping towards the entire beast pirates. The wind blades that fell on the giver were almost destructive, and generally, no one could resist. Everywhere he went, the earth was also cut open with cracks. Damn! Get out of my way! Drought Jack cursed angrily and slammed into it in the shape of a mammoth. Hard against the wind blade and crashed into the interior of the hurricane, preventing multiple wind blades. At the same time, the other 3 disasters also acted in unison. They could act, a few light spots appeared in the sky, piercing the dark cloudy sky. It is a few meteorites, falling from the sky. And do your best. Fujitora held the staff sword and blocked the front of one of the 3 disasters. And then, Shiryu of the Rain also swung a sword. The hot edge swept across the earth, spreading all the way to the last 3 disasters. The 3 disasters were blocked in an instant, and Zhongxing Smuji and Zhongxing Snagger were both startled. But they don't move, it doesn't mean no one finds them. Look at the trick. Helding rushed towards Smoothie. Quote. Jeers stepped towards Sina, his eyes calm and indifferent. Behind the 2 of them, there is also the earth and stone incarnation of Yagami Kingdo. Incarnation of earth and stone directly blocked the front of the party, the still alive Owen and Pelos Pegels. Both Owen and Pelos Pegels had bounties of more than 500 million, but faced with the incarnation of earth and stone, they were abruptly blocked. Statham swung a giant hammer, and it was a little difficult to see this side. Just walk here and fill the vacancy in combat power here. Nina gently wrapped her arms, it's starting. Her eyes were calm, even if it was such a battlefield, it wouldn't make her heart move. The growth accomplished with the 8 gods pirates, all the way to the top of the sea. On the other side, Helding, the leader of the giants, went directly to the general of the Wano Kingdom, Black Charcoal Orochi. Holding both hands in the air, a huge shock wave, Tianyu, suddenly fell from the sky in the face of the other party's ugly face. Come on. Let this capable army know how powerful our giant army is. Giant Rhodes and the others roared in rage at this moment, causing monstrous ocean waves. Wrapped in countless steel swords, he slayed the army of the capable ones. From the time of Yagami Kingdo's outrageous action to the present, in just half a minute, the battle has already fully erupted, and it has directly entered a state of white-hot. And far away. He and a Jew both showed a bit of shock at this moment. Whether it is a meteorite falling from the sky, or a fire burning the earth. By the 8 gods Kingdo is undoubtedly beyond their imagination. Especially the leader of the 8 gods Kingdo, with the strength of one person, the beasts Kaido can only fight, and have no strength to fight back. Every punch fell, as if the world was about to be destroyed, and the whole earth trembled. A Jew's eyes were already full of shock. What kind of power is contained in the body of Yagami Kingdo, who is similar to ordinary people and slightly shorter than her? Philo reminds you, 3 things to read, collect, recommend and share. Chapter 360, The Existence of Breaking Common Sense. Boom, boom, boom. A roar swept through the Wano country, and the top decisive battle of the four emperor pirates, the entire Wano country seemed to collapse and collapse. Countless people fled everywhere in panic, but there was nowhere to retreat. Many civilians in Wano Kingdom were even more terrified. And Huhuo Kinemon and Kazuki Momonosuke, who were hiding in remote areas of Wano country, were also inexplicably horrified by the violent earthquake. Panic of the two, the mountain peak suddenly collapsed. Kinemon desperately drew his sword and slashed the collapsed stone, but Momonosuke beside him was still buried by countless stones. An inquiry of Wano country. On the entire battlefield, the most powerful one is undoubtedly the battle between Yagami Kingta and 100 Beast Kaido. It can be said that every blow is like an earthquake, with a terrifying aftermath. Not to mention ordinary people, even a pirate offering a reward of tens of millions would be unable to resist the aftermath on a battlefield of this level. Without a doubt. Yagami Soto only brought the elites of the Yagami pirates, which was a choice without any problems. Because the so-called elites other than the captain and vice-captain can only be used as cannon fodder on a battlefield of this level. Boom, boom, boom. Every punch of Yashin Kangdu slammed by Beast Kai's body back, and even directly embedded half of his body into the ground. The last time he played against Kaido, he only used his speed and the power of blasting space to fight against Kaido. And this time, he just relied on the simple frontal eruption of the Day Tiger, and he has already completely suppressed Kaido. There is no need to use the power of blasting the sky. That guy, how can he be so outrageous? The pirates of the 100 Beasts pirates, in the fierce battle, watched the battle between Yagami Kingta and Kaido from a distance, and they were all terrified and unbelievable. Who followed Kaido the Beast a long time ago were also shocked in their hearts. Fight Kaido with fists alone. Even the Whitebeard of the past may not be able to do it. Kaido of the Beasts also did not expect that the strength of Yagami Kingdu would reach such a level. His growth has far exceeded his expectations. In this world, there is a limit to the growth of strength, or speaking of a world-class combat power such as a naval admiral, it is difficult to improve even a little bit. Even Devil Fruit can't do that either. Otherwise, if Garp eats a Momo fruit that can increase his power speed by 100 times, wouldn't he directly blow up the entire Great Root with one punch? However, the fact is, at Garp's level, the effect of the Devil Fruit on him has already been it's so tiny, it doesn't improve much at all. But of Yagami Kangdu seems to have broken this common sense. In just a few short years, Kaido of the Beasts felt that he was no longer a match for Yagami Kangdu. Maybe Yagami Kangdu may not have beaten two of him, but if he is one-on-one, he has almost no chance of winning. Boom! Yagami Kangta is another blasting fist, hitting Kaido's arm. Through Kaido's defense, the Day Tiger bombarded his body, causing him to snort, blood spilling from the corners of his mouth. Today's Yagami Kangdu, the pain caused by this blasting fist waving in front of him, is even more than the shocking fruit of Whitebeard.